How did I get involved? So many years ago, I was a fellow in pediatric cardiology at the University of Florida, and we had two patients there with Barth syndrome that I began taking care of even as a fellow. Someone in my department, one of my mentors, was interested in doing some clinical research as it related to cardiomyopathy in boys with Barth syndrome, and I attended the first organized collection of data, cardiac data in boys with Barth syndrome, and that was back in 2002, and for the most part I've been doing it ever since.
What interests you about these boys?
What interests me? Well, there's two parts to that question. One is the scientific and clinical part that I think is very interesting, and then the other part of it is the families that are willing to and the boys that are willing to participate in clinical research. They're engaged, they're intelligent, they want to learn about their disease, and they want to make it better for them and future generations. So there's kind of two pieces of that keep me engaged in doing this, the scientific part and then the family patient part. I think one of the important things as other investigators are working on actual potential therapies is to try to figure out what kind of things are we going to track and follow over time once these therapies are developed and ready for prime time. So part of what I have done is collect cardiac data on the boys over an extended period of time, and we've tried to do it in a protocolized way, so that we collect essentially the same data every 2 years on the boys. So that's been my piece of this, is trying to obtain some longitudinal data on the boys. So what we collected this year, so far we've done about 23 echoes and EKGs, but we will also include boys who have had heart transplants to get their history, and then we're going to try to include some of the boys who couldn't come to the conference by getting their data from their local cardiologist also to be able to include. So for some of these boys, this will amount to 14 years worth of cardiac data that we've been able to collect. I hope that it helps with recognition with Barth syndrome by publishing reports in the medical literature. I hope it helps with expectations about what to expect from other physicians, non-scientists, when it comes to cardiac issues and Barth syndrome. I also hope in the future that we have the ability to look at some detailed cardiac information as therapies are developed and know that this is the right thing to be tracking. There's a couple of different ways that the new therapies are aimed at helping. Some would be the cardiomyopathy and cardiac medications and medical therapies that are not Barth specific. So I think there are certain things that will be developed that will help heart failure in general, whether it's Barth related or not. Then there's another set of therapies that would be more Barth specific. So I think it's important to be able to track not just the cardiac issues, but the neuromuscular issues and muscle issues, feeding issues, and all the other things that go into Barth syndrome. These are the things we need to be collecting now, so that whether it's a cardiac specific therapy or maybe even a muscle specific therapy or a Barth specific therapy, we're able to track these things over time. Without the natural history data, you don't necessarily know what data to collect and look for as you treat patients with disease. We see a few kids who have never really been affected by cardiomyopathy. The vast majority have been affected by cardiomyopathy at some point in their lives. Some have responded to traditional medical therapies and gotten better, and then others have stayed with abnormal heart function, and then obviously there are others who have had to have transplants, and other patients who didn't survive, some even waiting for transplants. So we definitely see a broad range of cardiac issues when it relates to the cardiomyopathy for boys with Barth syndrome. I feel like I've been part of Team Barth since the very beginning. The thing about this conference and the concept is that it is the families and the scientists and the physicians, so I think it's a really unique relationship there. The families are very interested in what the scientists have to say and the physicians have to say, but equally as if not more importantly, the physicians and scientists are interested in what the families have to say, and I think that's a real key component of working together. There are other medical conferences and other family conferences, but I think this is really unique because it enables the scientists and physicians to learn from the families. It enables the families to learn from the scientists and physicians. And equally as importantly, it enables us to collect this kind of data we've been talking about, that, whether it is cardiac data or exercise tolerance data, strength data, lab data, that can be collected to give us a broader understanding of the disease. I think it's such an incredible opportunity to be able to come to this conference, not only because you meet other families with Barth syndrome, but I think making those connections with other people who are working for therapies or cures or to find information about this disease. I think it really opens their eyes. I think many families feel very isolated because it is a rare disease, so they may be the only Barth patient being treated at a big center. You know, some centers may have 2 or 3 or 4. But when you come to this meeting, you realize there really is a team Barth, and there are a whole lot of people working on this. Everyone from geneticists, bench investigators, clinicians, physicians, nurses. It really is a team, of which the family is part of that team. I think most of the families that I have ever met that have come have said, either I can't believe I didn't come before, or I'm going to come to the best of my ability every time, because every time I learn something.